Welcome once again to SoCo Chat, a podcast where we discuss all things concerning the county of Sonoma and this beautiful and sometimes stormy corner of California. I'm your host, Paul Gullickson, Communications Manager for the County of Sonoma. Today, our topic is homelessness in Sonoma County, and we're going to be interviewing Michael Gause, who's the manager of the Ending Homelessness Program within the county's Department of Health Services. We want to talk to Michael about the annual point-in-time count in particular in Sonoma County. But before we do, we want to remind you, our audience, of our weekly trivia question. At the end of today's segment, I'll let you know the trivia question and how you can submit your answers. Stay tuned. So, and I'll also just let you know, be the first to answer that question correctly, and you receive one of our SoCo Chat coffee mugs, which are in big demand right now. So, Michael, thank you for joining us here on SoCo Chat.
Thank you so much, Paul. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, let's. We definitely appreciate you being here, and let's dive into it right now. Every year, Sonoma County does what's called a point-in-time count. Would you explain to listeners what that entails?
Yeah, it's what every jurisdiction called a continuum of care, which is a homeless planning and policy body designated by HUD, has to do on an annual basis to really get a snapshot of how many people may be experiencing homelessness on a given day. So it's just that. It's a point in time required to be done at the end of January, the last 10 days in January every year. Some jurisdictions do it every 2 years. We've chosen to do it every year since 2015.
Okay. And why do we do it every year?
It really is to get a better sense of year-to-year data, having
how we're doing.
Yeah, how we're doing, how it's compares year to year.
Yeah.
And it is a literal account of folks who are outside, right, living unsheltered, or folks who are in shelters the night before.
Well, I can imagine the people in shelters are easier to count. How do you go about beginning to count the people outside?
It's a big undertaking and requires a lot of community volunteers and partners to do it. So we literally canvass every census tract in Sonoma County. It has to be done starting at 5 a.m.
It's all that same day.
All that same day for the unsheltered count. Yeah, starts at 5 a.m. through roughly 9 a.m. And that's because we're doing that to avoid duplication, right? People in shelters typically leave around that time, so we have to do it early. And we rely on about 100 or so volunteers from the community who sign up, and then about 30 or 40 guides who are actually homeless themselves, and they are paid for their work. And they're really the experts in helping us not just cover a census tract, but know where to go in that tract.
Right. Yeah. So we're talking about people who live, in tents, but also people who are living in cars and RVs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So unsheltered meaning it's literally called a place not meant for human habitation.
Yeah.
So it could be an RV, it could be a tent outside, abandoned building. One important thing to know is it's actually not counting people who are doubled up, right? Who might be living
on somebody's couch
or couch surfing, because obviously we can't go into a home to count. So
right, yeah, that must be really challenging. And so tell us, you just did this in January. How did it go this year?
It went really great. What we've done the last couple years really refined how we approach this. We assign people to tracks who really know the area, right? Outreach workers, whether it's our
sometimes they often know the people.
Exactly, right. Yeah. So we get really specific on having, matching people up with where they know, where they know people may be outside. Went really well. We didn't have any challenges with weather. There was no rain. It wasn't extremely cold. And most places actually wrapped up before 9 a.m., our target date.
Yeah.
Our target time, excuse me.
Yeah. Well, that's been somewhat of an anomaly. Years past, we've had some really cold, rainy days where you've had to do this. We had a couple of years you did it in the middle of COVID. That presented some obstacles for you. Yeah,
we actually did. The only year we have not done a count was 2021, and that was during the Omicron surge. But it was, and 2020 was right about a month before COVID, right? 2022 was a little bit more difficult because we were still in COVID, and so there was more distancing and wearing masks, and a lot of this stuff was done virtually. So I think getting back to now in 2024, as we've moved past that, we're kind of back in person doing this, right?
Right. Well, and even as I remember in 2022, there were a lot of people who were avoiding homeless shelters, even though beds were available.
Exactly.
They didn't like that congregate settings because that's where the COVID was spreading.
And we actually saw an increase in 2023 of people in shelters, right? Just because of that, because of the ease in COVID.
Yeah. Well, just get back to logistics a little bit. You can't possibly do this alone. This must require a lot of people helping out.
Yeah, I think this year we had upwards, I think of about 150, 160 folks. Not even including our team, right, and our consultants, Applied Survey Research, who support with a lot of the data collection. But it does take an effort. We cover the county, entire county, but we deploy out of 5 different areas. So all kind of 5 regions of the county: central, western, eastern, southern, and northern.
Yeah. And so you partner with cities and nonprofits and just volunteers? Can
Yeah.
people just volunteer to help with this?
Yeah, we have people who sign up, who may not be involved in this line of work and just want to have that experience. And I think it really is valuable for people to volunteer and do this and see what people are experiencing when they're experiencing homelessness.
Yeah. Well, I'm fascinated because in Sonoma County, we have such a different typography, we have over 1,800 square mile. I looked it up before this interview. Nearly 1,800 square miles. I mean, how do you begin to cover all of that to make sure that you get as accurate count as possible?
It really is a testament to working with people in each region of the county
That know the area.
And know the area, right? Sort of nonprofit. Each kind of area has a nonprofit, whether it's the central or western area of the county, that really specializes and works in that area. But we do, like I say, rely on a vast, small army of volunteers and guides. We have to cover everywhere, even if we know, such as, driving up the the coast on Highway 1. We aren't going to find many people, Sea Ranch up all that far.
Right.
We still have to do it. So.
Right. But and that makes sense because people would prefer to be closer to services that they can take advantage of that are available to them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that tends to be more in the urban areas.
Yeah.
As it is.
Yeah. And but there are places, it's hard. That's why we call it a point in time, and we're never going to count everybody because there are places like private property that we can't go on to, right, where people may be staying.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, in addition to counting individuals, you also ask questions of them as well, right? Like how old they are, how long they've been homeless, where they came from originally. Are people willing to answer these kinds of questions generally?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's really a 2-part process with the count. On the day of, in this case, which was January 26th this year, it's an observational only. So we ask people not to bother folks, not to take pictures, ask questions. After we get through that, the 2 to 3 weeks after, we do surveys, but those are all done by folks who are experiencing homelessness themselves, and we pay them per survey.
Okay.
And so what we've learned is that folks are far more likely to talk to a peer, right? Somebody who is having that same experience as them than just a stranger coming up, on the morning of the count. So that we end up getting about 500 surveys to get a good sample.
We found that so many areas, and getting COVID vaccines out there, that it's the trusted messengers that really are able to connect with people, right?
Yeah, and they're going to be, folks are going to be more comfortable and really open up more to somebody like that rather than somebody they've never seen or met or, who's just running up with a clipboard.
Yeah,
So.
well, that certainly makes sense. So what do we do with all this information once we get it?
So we get it, we'll have preliminary results probably May or sometime around then, May or June. Which is kind of the top line number, the overall number, and some of the subpopulations. The rest of the info that comes from the surveys and all that, we compile it into an annual report. And that report comes out typically in midsummer. And it's pretty comprehensive, really gets into the whys and hows and whats of everything. And the information is used in a variety of ways. It can impact funding, how much funding we get at the federal or state level. For example, we had a decrease last year, and we actually got less money from the state because we were doing better. Conversely, it's a strange thing to
congratulations.
Think about. Yeah, right. So, but it's also used not just by us at the county, but nonprofit partners and grant applications. Really getting the message out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because you get this demographic information, you're really able to look at where the trends are. For example, you mentioned we did have a significant decline in the total number of homelessness. It was down 22% last year from the year before. Terrific news. But then we did see some uptick in the numbers of the chronically homeless, right? And so you start to see more. You get into the weeds a little more as to what's really happening out in the community.
Yeah, and again, it's a point in time, so it is designed to look at what could be happening on any day. The 22% decrease was our most significant one since 2015 when I actually started. We'd had a larger decrease then from the Great Recession. When actually folks may not know, we had at one point almost 4,500 people
Yeah.
experiencing homelessness in 2013, which is a horrible number.
Yeah, and that's
Um,
really what's triggered so much of a response in the whole
yeah,
continuum of care effort here in the whole county, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think we can attribute that decrease last year to a lot of things. We could, there's been greater coordination between the county, the 9 cities, the continuum of care, which is again public-private partners.
Hmm.
Increased resources from things like Project Home Key. We added almost 400 new units of housing, whether it was shelter,
Just
permanent
here in the
housing.
county.
Yeah, of homeless dedicated housing
Mhm.
beds, we call them,
Hmm.
from 2022 to 2023. And that's why you saw more people probably living in shelters, but fewer outside.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned, we had at one point 4,500. Just in terms of real numbers, we're what, less than half that now?
Yeah, about 2,200
Yeah,
as of 2023. And again, we'll see. I think again, why it's important we do this annually so we can see, we had this decrease. Is it sustaining right
right,
now? Did it go back up? Did it go
right.
down? Things like that.
Well, in fact, the only year that we actually saw an uptick in that last 10 years was during COVID in 2022.
There was that, and also 2017, there was an uptick after the fires.
Oh, okay.
Right after the 2017 fires, we did see an increase, which not unexpected with
Again.
the amount of property that was lost.
Yeah. So the message is we are making progress. There's still work
Absolutely.
to be done, but we're moving in the right direction.
Moving in the right direction, but a lot more work to be done. 2,200 people is still 2,200 too many to be experiencing homelessness.
Just to get into that issue of the chronic homeless, how do we define the chronic homelessness?
So the chronic homelessness is a Department of Housing and Urban Development, a HUD definition, but it means somebody who's been outside at least a year or longer, or classic HUD speak, three experiences of homelessness in 4 years that add up to a year,
Right.
as well as with a disability.
Right.
So it's folks who are the most vulnerable
And
individuals.
sometimes those are the hardest ones to really connect with, right?
Absolutely.
They may have
because-
been through, they've had a couple of different cycles of trying to help them.
Yeah, and years and years of trauma
Right.
can certainly add up.
And there can be substance abuse issues, a number of things that you're dealing with to help them.
Yeah, and we've seen over the last few years in particular an increase in our seniors who are experiencing homelessness, or at least 55 and up. It's trended, and that's a national trend too, that the age of homelessness is trended to be going up.
Yeah.
So
That's really heartbreaking.
yeah.
I heard that the Department of Veterans Affairs had sent a senior official to observe Sonoma County's count this year. Can you tell us who that was and why they were here?
Yeah. So we've our county homelessness team has always had a really, even before my time, really strong relationship with the Department of Veteran Affairs here in Santa Rosa and the Bay Area, and have actually had veteran committees that we've worked on for homeless vets. I co-chaired one myself. The individual is Mr. Matthew Quinn, who's the Undersecretary of Memorial Affairs in Washington, D.C.
Fantastic.
And they reached out, meaning the national VA, reached out to the local VA and me to coordinate the visit. The VA typically sends somebody out, it's dignitaries, right, out to a few communities each year to highlight work on veteran homelessness. Before I started back in, I think it was 2013, we had about 400 veterans experiencing homelessness, and last year it was just over 100.
Wow.
So tremendous progress, and it really is a credit to the VA, our veteran partner organizations, in all that work.
So that was why Undersecretary Quinn was here, just to kind of.
I think it's probably one of the reasons.
Uh-huh.
Chose to come out, and we have, like I said, a really strong VA here in Santa Rosa.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. That's really great. Well, Michael, you mentioned you have been here since 2013. Is that right?
2015. So
Okay.
yeah, I started in January 2015. Back then at the Community Development Commission, and now I've transitioned over to Department of Health Services.
Well, if you don't mind me asking, how did you get on this career path? How did you end up doing what you do?
It's like a winding journey, excuse me. It's coming from an English major and a master's in creative writing. I actually got involved with
Interesting.
homeless services in my early 20s in San Francisco, and mental health advocacy. And I was a frontline worker, case manager of supportive housing on 6th Street. for many years, and other properties working with both families, youth, and individuals experiencing homelessness, and ended up transitioning up here to work for the county in 2015 for my first government job. I had been in nonprofits before that.
Well, you always strike me. You always amazing me how much you connect with people out, and people trust you. Build trust with people out in the streets, and you just have a way with you that I think connects with people. That's my observation.
Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's having done direct service work before, and my role now is more, is more public facing and policy oriented. But I still, I think, carry that with me in the direct service, and I try to talk to everybody I see on the street.
Yeah.
And offer resources if I can.
Yeah. Well, you have a very loving, heartfelt approach to you. And you're part of a newly created homeless division team, which are doing some amazing work. Could you tell us, in kind of aside from the pit count, what else you're involved in, your team?
Yeah. So we work it's a homeless services division, which is like you said, a new division with health services. We're what's called the lead agency for the continuum of care. And we kind of have three components to our team. It's a large division, overseen by our director, Dave Kiff, under Director Tina Rivera overall at the Health Services Department. My side is the Ending Homelessness side is more of the policy, funding. We fund, millions of dollars in programs, data, evaluation piece. And then we have a couple other teams called the Heart and Soul teams that are, adjacent to us that do a lot of the county outreach and support for places like Los Guilicos Village that people might know about, or some of the, the emergency shelter site, which is just down the way here.
Yeah. And the Heart team, they deploy, they go out, and they're connecting with people and trying to get them to take advantage of the services that are available to them.
Yeah, with our three kind of legs under our division, we came up with some easy terms, right? So my team, we're the funders, right? We help pay for things, and the Heart team they're the finders. They go out and find folks, and then the Soul team, they're the keepers. They provide some of the services after people get in.
Well, I love the terminology.
Yeah,
because it really is at the heart of what you're doing.
Yeah, it's all three legs kind of standing.
Well, that's great. Well, if you don't mind, what do you like most about your job? I always like asking this question of our guests because I feel like it is helpful.
I think serving, and knowing that, at the end of the day, we're trying to make a difference, right? As hard as it is, and as heartbreaking as it is sometimes.
Yeah.
I think, even though it's our wonderful nonprofit partners doing the services most of the time, we're providing some of that backbone support and funding to it, and just hearing one person get into housing off the street is all it takes to make it worth it.
Right. And I know we talk a lot about homelessness, and homelessness is increasing nationwide. There was just a report that came out, but it certainly seems like we're making progress here. Do you feel like you're making progress?
I feel like we are. We have a lot more work to do, but yeah, definitely feel like we are.
Well, thank you. Thank you for all your work. And I have to ask this question too.
Yeah.
Whether it's a hiking trail or restaurant or maybe a spot in your house, where is your go-to place where you like to go to when you need some downtime, and it just makes you appreciate where we live?
Yeah, I think being out in such a beautiful county, I think either the Laguna de Santa Rosa Trail near Sebastopol, and also the coast, Doran Beach, I take my kids to, and if I need a little downtime, it's great to grab a pint at the Russian River Brewery downtown. So
Pliny the Younger is coming out soon. So
yeah.
yeah. Well, stay tuned. Well, Michael, thank you so much for being here. And as a thank you, as always, we'd like to give you one of our SoCo Chat mugs.
Fantastic. Thank you.
So take it with you. And to our listeners, we'd also like to give you a chance to win one of our coffee mugs as well. Be the first to answer correctly this week's trivia contest, and we'll make sure that you receive one. Our question this week is this: what is the oldest continually operating family winery in the state of California? Once again, we're looking for the name of the oldest continuously operating family winery in the state. And if you suspect it's in Sonoma County, well, I'm not going to steer you away. If you know the answer, email your answer to publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. That's public affairs, one word, @sonoma-county.org. And please be sure to include your phone number so we can get back to you and let you know whether you won. Also, if you have comments about this or a question for Michael that we could pass on or address, or any other comments about segments or a future discussion for topic, also contact us at that same email address. That's publicaffairs@sonoma-county.org. Thank you all, and we hope you continue to follow us, SoCo Chat, on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and of course, YouTube. We'll see you in the next segment. Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Paul.